Now we will review the lost clause and add a few things. So you remember these are basic media types. We were speaking of out-of-home, and we defined it as advertising that reaches consumers while they are outside their homes, even though mobile phones don't qualify. We said reaches people while they're on the go. We looked at spending, and we said that out-of-home is, 9.5 to 11. It's growing. All right, that is the key thing. It's not a huge factor, nothing like internet or TV, but it is growing, and it's growing because it's the last unavoidable medium. If you go out, you kind of have to see it. It doesn't have content. Another point that's made in your book effectively, although digital indoor screens and networks are starting to change that. We talked about cigarette advertising coming in and out, and that the spending is growing moderately. We said it's a local medium. It's bought city by city. Typically, turnaround is slow because of all the physical factors of printing and shipping and sending people out to put them up in 200 locations during a blizzard, and etc. But the digital signage, which is a part that's growing, it's growing. Even with highway signs, it's also obviously growing in these indoor networks. You basically can put up a new ad, click, click, click on your computer, and it's a new one's up. We talked about out-of-home advertising creative being an uninvited guest. Remember, it's who's there, and it's like you're not expecting anyone. So out-of-home is something that really basically intrudes upon your daily journey. You don't choose to look at it. It's kind of put in your way as much as possible, so you have to look at it and deal with it. And since there's, frankly, so much of it, and so many things going on around us, the phones in our hands, and everything, our subways and shelters, and every other darn thing we see, especially in New York City, there's so much out-of-home. Effective out-of-home creative needs to intrigue you, needs to charm you, perhaps, needs to engage your brain with something provocative, right? Yet simple. Can't be hard to read. I didn't talk about this before, but, a fairly standard and effective way to use outdoors called a teaser campaign. And think to yourselves, I'm sure most of you have seen a teaser campaign. What I mean by that is that in a billboard, somebody puts up something, such and such is coming, Rosebud is coming, or whatever, who knows what. You're like, oh, you don't get it. It's definitely provocative. You have no idea what Rosebud is. And that's up for a week, and it's very simple, and you can see it. And you're like, okay, well, you're curious. And then it's paid off. That's the teaser. Then in another week, someone puts up a message. Rosebud is our new movie starring, so-and-so, so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. And they paid off the teaser. So that's a effective way to be provocative. And just think to yourself if you've seen anything like that. I'll bet you have. Outdoor creative needs to be provocative but simple and readable. Provocative simplicity is our way of making particularly a highway or roadside billboard more effective, even though the impression is short. We talked about haiku poetry. I'm not going to show you any more haikus. I'm sure you'll be disappointed to know. But I think this is a really good example of something provocative where the headline and the visual don't look as if they don't go together. But when you think about them, they do go together. But the point is that you have to think about them. Your mind is engaged. Now, here's one. I apologize if it's controversial. I know it's a little adult, shall we say, in content, but a member of this class that I taught in the spring brought this in. This was like the second media journey out-of-home ad that was shared in front of the class. And it really fascinated everyone because everybody thought it was an anti-fur ad when they looked at it. But when they read more closely, and when they read by the way, this is in Soho. It's a wall unit in Soho, or it was. But when you read the whole thing, Life's too short to fake it. OwnYourO.org. So basically, it's provocative. You get into it, you think it's one thing, and then find out it's another thing. And here's a little piece from Ad Age on this out of home. So it got publicity, right? It got Instagrammed a lot. It got lots of play in social media. And here we go. Of course, it's, hang on. Here we go. Creative Shop Vitro's new campaign for Astroglide Personal Care Lubricant wants New York Fashion Week goers to know that life is too short to fake it. And here's the ad. Innocuous from a visual perspective. And they have different creative, I guess. They have fake lashes, fake diamonds. It's meant to highlight, and well, you can read it, orgasm gap among women. They got turned down by lots of out-of-home companies that thought it was, the creative was going to be too controversial to put up. And look at this, Snapchat, Facebook, and Instagram wouldn't run the ads. Nobody responded for comment at the time this article was written. Okay, so anyway, very interesting, a good example of effective out-of-home. Okay, now let's see if we can get back here to our presentation. And then here's okay, so provocative simplicity, okay. And we wondered for out-of-home, how to evaluate it. And I think we said that, remember the CPM is pretty low. The quality of impression is nominally not going to be very good with a standard out-of-home ad if it's too short. But if the creative is effective, as I would argue that Campbell Soup ad was and the Astroglide one was, it can be very effective. Okay? It's going to be up to you when you're VP marketing or head of advertising at such and such a company to challenge your agency to not just do the obvious thing with your out-of-home, but to be provocative, all right? I think I've made my point. By the way, does an out-of-home poster remind you of any other media format while we're thinking about out-of-home? And I would suggest, I think I may have mentioned that when the internet first was becoming public, and people were commenting on it way back in the early 90s. It was called the Information Superhighway. And so a billboard on the Information Superhighway is basically a banner ad, right? It's a static ad of a certain size. And like a poster or a billboard, it kind of pops up. It's there. You didn't ask for it, right? Like a poster or a billboard, you can't put too much on it or it will forbid people. Anyway, there are a lot of similarities if you think about it. And is there paid, owned, earned for out-of-home? This is one of the big topics in your textbook, your very good textbook, is dividing up paid, owned, and earned out-of-home. And I think most out-of-home is going to be paid, but because it's so public, it can get you earned media if it's provocative and interesting enough. Okay? By the way, that is me. A long time ago when I was head of business development for the largest out-of-home advertising company in the country, we perceived, as people perceive even now, that billboards have a negative environmental image. So I engineered a meeting with the head of the Nature Conservancy for the state of New York, who actually was somebody I knew, to basically say, well, look, can out-of-home companies donate some open space to support environmental causes? Does that make sense? And she was interested, and But the only thing at the time that came out of it was I did it myself. I called up, at the time the name of the company was TDI, Transportation Displays Incorporated, and got them to donate a billboard. This is on the West Side Highway, right across from the carrier, the big aircraft carrier there. Our creative, we had a creative director. I was at Gannett Outdoor. Our creative director did the creative, and we did something to support the Environmental Bond Act in New York State, which was something that was going to preserve more of the Adirondacks. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Adirondacks. It's a huge state park in New York. I actually have had a house on Lake George in the Adirondacks, so it was an issue that was near and dear to me, and it was also near and dear to the New York Nature Conservancy. Anyway, I paid out of my own pocket for somebody to go up and put that up. It's one big piece of vinyl material painted by computer. This is a whole new process that was launched in the 80s. These things, big signs like this, used to actually be hand painted. Anyway, so donated space. The production of the ad was donated, printing. Our creative director did the creative, and I paid a few $100s for some guys to go and put it up there. And then I took a picture. I had a picture taken of me, and we sent it out to some press in New York State. And anyway, I actually did get picked up in some papers up in the Adirondacks, including some of the local papers up there. And I was told by somebody I knew up there that I was lucky I didn't get my house burned down, because a lot of the people who live up in the Adirondacks don't like the state taking over more land. They think they're kind of anti-government up there. Anyway, what does this say? Why am I showing you this? Just making the point that out of home, when it's a little controversial, can be effective, even one sign, and that whenever you do public relations, you never can tell what's going to happen.